If you look deep enough into Viking territory, you will find a Viking berserker named Ulf and a samurai named Kensei Mujihina sparring. After sparring, they liked to gather and catch up before Mujihina made the trek back home to the mire. This unexpected grouping took place as a result of a stalemate against one another on the battlefield. Now, instead of battling one another, there's a mutual respect. They continue to push each other and test each other's limits, but the true intent of a raised level of sparring remains within their hearts. One day when the two got together, they began comparing their conquests. Ulf discussed the enjoyment of walking into night country, plundering at free will. Ulf contested that there wasn't a knight in all the world that could challenge their might and has the scalps to prove it. Kensei Mujihina took a different approach, as the talk turned to others attempting to ravage and take over their land. Enraged by the constant threats of their land, Kensei Mujihina told stories of how they prepared for the arrival of a smaller Wulin group that underestimated their might. Once they arrived, the onslaught commenced. With many of the samurai outnumbered 3-1, they battled with unmatched vigor that Mujihina contributes came from the elders. And while the battle was grueling and tough to endure, one of the victors stands before Ulf today. The conversation temporarily stopped. An invasive gaze ensues, a look they've seen in each other's eyes before. It then quickly fades into an inquisitive gaze, and in unison they ask each other, "Have you ever been defeated?" They laugh off the unforeseen moment, and Ulf answers first, "No, I've never been defeated, not even as hard as you tried." Kensei Mujihina chuckled and quickly retorted, "Neither have I. That's another thing we have in common." Ulf begins to speak after a moment of thought. "You know, we've conquered a lot." Kensei Mujihina interjects and says, "You've conquered a lot. We've only defended our home." Ulf quickly interrupts, "Well, we've both shed a lot of blood. You can't say you haven't done that." Kensei Mujihina could only deliver a reluctant, "How long can we keep this up? This win streak, how long? We're not getting any younger." Kensei Mujihina says, "We must win until our children are able to walk in our shoes. The question isn't how long. No one can answer that. The question we must all answer, why do we have to win?" Ulf paced a bit, thinking about what Kensei Mujihina said, and Ulf stated, "You're right, but look at us. Viking and samurai, no hatchets being thrown, swords sheathed. The moments we share are fleeting, but they do provide hope. Hope that we can work out our differences. History tells us we took your land, and I wasn't a part of that. But unfortunately, I stand as the minority amongst our people." At this time, horns started to blare. Samurai arrows began to rain down, and Ulf once again locked eyes with Kensei Mujihina. At that time, Kensei Mujihina gravely stated, "And that is why we must win." Thank you for tuning in to another short story. Hope you guys enjoyed that. I would like to thank Ulf as well as Kensei Mujihina for their participation in this story. It just goes to show things are not always as they seem. So make sure you are all staying vigilant because things can go bad in a heartbeat. I'll catch y'all on the next one. Peace.